The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for being here today. I'm assuming that all of you are already Blue Poppy customers, and I thank you so much for that. We appreciate your business, and we're doing a series of these little webinars to help you use our products more effectively, or maybe learn some things about them that you didn't already know. So let's start right in, and we'll go through a few of the Blue Poppy formulas that are based on harmonizing formulas and talk about why those are important. If you have any questions about anything that comes up during this seminar, please don't hesitate to email me if there's something I don't cover, or something comes up that that's a burning question. Please feel free to contact me at any time about it, or either Malia or Sean, who are also practitioners here at Blue Poppy that many of you know and who are very familiar with Blue Poppy products. So let's talk about the harmonizing formulas. When we start learning herbs, there's 15, 17, 18 different categories of herbal formulas that we have to learn about. And with my patients, what I find the most tricky, if I'm going to write a formula from scratch, is to figure out which chapter to start with a patient. In other words, should I start in the Qi rectifying formulas, or should I start in the Yin supplement formulas, or should I start in the Qi supplementing formulas, or what do I want to use as my fundamental building block? And what you discover fairly quickly in practice, unless your practice is extremely unusual, or you're only treating children or something like that, that the harmonizing formulas are a tried and true place to start with many adult patients, with the lion's share of our adult patients. So let's go back just very briefly and talk about what are harmonizing formulas. So in different books, it's interesting, I looked in several different books as I was preparing for this talk, and different books subdivide the harmonizing formulas in different ways. Some call them, harmonizing the Shaoyang stage. Some call them harmonizing interior and exterior, or constructive and defensive yin and wei. Some call them, let me grab a highlighter tool here. Some will divide them into 4 or 5 categories. Some divide them into 3. So I've done three types that made the most sense to me here. The harmonizing the Shaoyang, or the interior and exterior, sometimes constructive and defensive, yin and wei. And the most famous of those formulas is Shao Chai Hu Tang, which all of us are familiar with. It, according to the research from Japan, they actually keep records because they have pharmacies in Japan for herbal medicine. And Shao Chai Hu Tang and its derivatives are the most common formula used in Japan. Now people may be modifying it, and of course it's a formula that can be modified 100 ways, but probably one of the most often used formulas in the world. The second category, and the one that we're going to focus on the most today, is harmonizing the liver and spleen, or the liver and stomach. Sometimes these are 2 separate categories in different formulary books. Sometimes they're the same. The most famous formula in the harmonizing the liver and spleen category, of course, is Xiaoyasan. And I would venture a guess, certainly it's true at Blue Poppy, that for all of our, either the Blue Poppy classics or the Great Nature classics, we sell far more Xiaoyasan than any other herbal formula. Because it has such a huge, wide group of conditions that it can treat. it's applicable in so many cases. Sinisan is another formula from that category. We may come back to that one a little bit later. Then finally, harmonizing the stomach and intestines, another important category. The most famous of the formulas in that category is Bansha Sheshin Tang. Bansha, clear the heart decoction. And this is another formula that gets used certainly in blue poppy formulas. We have a couple of formulas in which that or parts of that appear. So for most of us in practice in the West, the most important category for harmonizing formulas is going to be the liver and spleen category. Why? Because a liver-spleen disharmony is the most common pattern discrimination seen in adults with chronic conditions. And adults, more specifically women, between age, let's say, 35 and 65, with a chronic condition is going to be the bread and butter for most Chinese medical or acupuncture practices. That is 60, 70%, if not more, in most of our practices. That is who we are seeing. So most of us have, as adults, at least some amount of liver-spleen disharmony. And why is that? So a liver-spleen disharmony is shorthand for saying liver depression, qi stagnation, or liver qi, plus a spleen qi deficiency or vacuity. So the liver is overacting on the spleen, or the spleen is weak, allowing the liver to be excessive, hyperactive, etc., etc. There are a number of different variations on how this appears, but it is a tendency in our lives. The Neijing says, in adults, blame the liver. And what does that mean? It means that life is not perfect. The liver doesn't like to be inhibited. The liver doesn't like traffic jams. The liver doesn't like problems that don't have solutions. The liver is aggravated by emotional upset. The liver is the temperamental viscous. There is everything about being an adult, everything about having to delay gratification is a small injury to the liver. It also says in the Neijing, spleen disease is liver disease, or when the liver is diseased, treat the spleen. There are a number of ways in which this idea about a liver-spleen disharmony gets discussed in the classical literature. And if you are treating adults with chronic conditions, of course, having a chronic condition, it will aggravate the liver, because if you didn't have very much liver qi when you got sick, the fact that you can't get well, or the fact that you have to take medicines that you don't like, or the fact that you can't look the way you want, or can't eat what you want, or whatever, you can't hike up the mountain anymore, you can't have sugar anymore, you can't, whatever the thing is that you can't do, is going to be a constant stressor on the liver. In fact, stress itself of any kind damages the liver. So 70 to 80% of our patients will have some kind of liver-spleen disharmony, or some amount of it. And because of that, it's a good place to start. We can treat the majority of our patients with modifications of harmonizing formulas, or by combining harmonizing formulas with other formulas. All right. So what kind of conditions, what kind of diseases do people with a liver-spleen disharmony show up with in our clinics? Well, of course, the famous one is PMS, and perhaps related, what women will come in and say they have been told they have a hormone imbalance. There could be psych conditions, depression, anxiety, stuff that is either subclinical, that It bothers them, but they haven't been to a psychiatrist. They haven't been given a Western psychiatric diagnosis, but they have some sort of psychiatric or mental emotional upset. It could, of course, also manifest as digestive disorders, often does. Can include named conditions, chronic fatigue syndrome, IBS, candidiasis, leaky gut. The latest one that, is the hot topic these days is gluten intolerance, but food allergies of all kinds and hypoglycemia. So lots of chronic digestive disorders can fall into liver-spleen disharmony or liver-spleen-stomach disharmony category. And then almost anything else that is worsened by stress will participate in, create, be a cofactor in people with liver-spleen disharmonies or liver-spleen-stomach disharmonies. Or people can have liver, spleen, and a stomach-intestine disharmony. What you'll see often is people with a liver-spleen disharmony plus some kind of heat. It can be either damp heat, depressive heat, i.e. the liver's been stagnant and the qi, or the liver's been depressed and the qi stagnant for so long that the liver gets hot. So depressive heat or deficiency heat. And this then, of course, if there is heat, that can worsen disquietude of the spirit. If the spleen is weak, then the spleen is not creating the heart qi and the heart blood. So that can further exacerbate disquietude of the spirit. All right, so Blue Poppy formulas. Of course, now we have Xiaoyao San and we have Xiao Chai Hu Tong in both Blue Poppy Classics and Great Nature Classics. So those are available as they are, as is Bancha Sheishan Tong, Sunny San. Some of the other formulas that we will mention today are available as classics, but many of our originals formulas are either based on the fundamental concept or the fundamental treatment principle of harmonizing the liver and spleen or the liver, spleen, stomach. Or we have taken often more than one harmonizing formula and combined them in different ways in some of our formulas. Or we've used pieces of harmonizing formulas as building blocks. So let's actually look at a few of those. And I'm hoping we will finish this. By the way, this will go on for maybe half an hour. I want you to be able to get back to your clients and your lunch and whatever else. So this isn't going to be a long webinar. Here we have modified perilla and mentha. Some of you may have used this formula. It's a favorite of mine. I think it's a wonderful, brilliant idea as a formula. It contains elements of several harmonizing formulas, Xiao Chai Hu Tong, as well as Bancha Sheishan Tong, as well as a nod towards Xiao Chai Hu Tong, but then the brilliant stroke of it is that it has Wu Mei and Zisuya. So basically umeboshi plum, which is made from Wu Mei plums that are pickled using perilla leaves, all right? So, and this is a food in Japan. Many of you may be familiar with umeboshi plums. You can use them for a wide variety of things. But, in macrobiotic medicine, they were used and are used for different kinds of stomach pain, certain kinds of headaches, including migraines, hyperacidity in the stomach. They are believed to be useful against worms and various kinds of parasites that you can pick up in the third world. I mean, I have taken them with me to India and just eaten one every day to keep my bowels healthy, and they can counteract fatigue. So the Wu Mei and Zisuya are very important. If any of you out there are interested in articles on this subject, later on in this talk I will give you a link to some articles on that subject if you're interested in Wu Mei. So what this treats in terms of its pattern discrimination or the treatment principles that it manifests are spleen Qi deficiency or vacuity with stomach heat and dryness. So the stomach is hot and dry, but the intestines are damp and hot. This is all complicated, of course, by liver Qi, and it may also be complicated by a heart Qi and blood vacuity. So there may be some psycho-emotional presentation or some aspect to this person's presentation. So in terms of Chinese diseases, which most of us don't learn very much about, I admit that I don't know enough about Chinese disease categories, but many of us have heard the category of GU. Heiner Fruoff up in Portland has made this a centerpiece of his work and his translating efforts. So some kind of parasites, it's loosely translated, it's a bigger category than that, but abdominal distension, loose stools with diarrhea, abdominal cramping, but there also could be allergies or food allergies that lead to rashes, fatigue, rhinitis kind of symptomology and headaches due to either some kind of infestation with parasites or a food allergy of some sort. The patients will usually have been already diagnosed by their Western doctor, and they will be suffering from either some kind of parasite or the sequela of that, some sort of intestinal dysbiosis or candida, leaky gut, those are all kind of one category, or food allergies, or hypoglycemia, or IBS, Crohn's disease, myalgic encephalopathy, which we usually call chronic fatigue syndrome. Or there will be other kinds of allergic responses that either are nasal or have to do with the skin. So broad range of application for this formula. The Chinese research, especially on Wu Mei in general, shows this is a powerful ingredient for a wide variety of named conditions: insomnia, hepatitis, chronic skin conditions, abnormal sweating, asthma, which is usually seen as an allergy of some sort. And I have some interesting research available at bluepoppy.com. If those of you who are interested, send me an email here at my address, pretty simple, honora@bluepoppy.com, and I'll forward you the link. All right, so that's modified Perlin Mentha, a great formula. I use it in my practice, and I recommend it highly. If you haven't tried it, it's a formula you should go to our website and look at it. And I would be surprised if you didn't find a patient in your list of patients for whom this could be useful. All right, Chaihu Shugan-san, a liver, spleen, stomach harmonizing formula, especially for pain in the stomach, the esophagus, the flanks, the hypochondral region that's due to basically liver Qi. There's a lot of research on this formula from China, and it's been used, of course, it can be used for PMS kinds of symptoms. So, maybe even breast pain, although it doesn't say that, but it's the same area of the body. But maybe bloating in the stomach, etc., that comes with PMS can be used for dysmenorrhea or gastroesophageal reflux disease, especially if it's modified a little bit. So again, we carry this as a classic. This formula is available both as a Great Nature and as a Blue Poppy classic, depending on which one you like, but we have modified it specifically in a formula that we call GastroQuell. And what we have modified it with is 2 heat clearers, Huang Qin, Radix scutellaria bicalensis, and Huang Lian, Radix coctitis chinensis, to clear heat, specifically from the liver and stomach and heart. And 2 aged ingredients, Archentong, Chunpi, and Bansha, to dispel dampness. And then a couple other ingredients to supplement the spleen and specifically to reverse counterflow. So some nod towards Suni-san, which we saw earlier in this talk. So in a research study done in China using a version of this formula, a similar version of this formula, against one of the little purple pills, some standard Western pharmaceutical for GERD. This was done, 7 years ago. 86% of the patients improved to at least to some extent, if not to a lot extent, using the this form of Shaihu Chugan-san, more so than the Western pharmaceutical. So if you have patients who come in and they don't want, if they are happy with their Nexium or Prilosec or whatever, and it's working well without side effects, well then, so be it. If not, or they want to do something else, then this formula is definitely worth a look. It's a very popular one here at Blue Poppy. So we have several other formulas that are based quite specifically on the harmonizing category. Change and Enrich is an interesting formula for menopausal women that actually some years ago I had the opportunity of taking this formula based on Danjur Shio-san, or Jiawei Shio-san as it is sometimes translated, with an infusion of Ganmai Dazao Tang, which astringes the exterior and stops sweating, and Swanzao Rintang, which calms the spirit and is helpful for anxiety, insomnia, etc. And then Cold-Quell, Cystoquel, and Golden Qi are three formulas here at Blue Poppy that all are based around Shaochai Hutang, and we'll come to those shortly. First, let's talk about Cold-Quell. By far and away our bestseller, and has been for years. We sell tons of this stuff, and I'm assuming that some of the people listening here have used this formula. And it is fundamentally Shaochai Hutang to deal with the liver-spleen disharmony part of this, as well as possibly the yin and wei, exterior, interior, Xiaoyang pattern part of getting a cold, along with Su Tang, Yin Xiaosan, and Banlan Gun. So obviously to deal with an exterior pattern wind heat that is manifesting a sore throat and other kinds of cold flu sorts of symptomology. Transforms phlegm, eliminates dampness, and then Banlan Gun, of course, there's a lot of research on Banlan Gun vis-a-vis viruses or viral infections of one kind or another. So brilliant formula. We have lots of articles on our website about this formula if you wish to read about the science behind it or how we came up with the idea for this formula. Bob has written quite a bit, and this may be one of the most important formulas that Bob created during his career here at Blue Poppy. So I won't belabor more detail about that formula. Let's talk for a moment about Change and Enrich. Again, Danjur Shio-san. So Shio-san plus clearing heat from the blood with a formula to stop sweating and a formula to calm the spirit and help a person sleep better. Nourishes liver blood. When we use the words nourish blood, that always implies the liver. If you see that translated somewhere just as nourishes the blood, usually we're talking about liver blood. Enriches yin, specifically when you use the word enrich, we typically mean the kidneys. So this is a broad range formula that does all kinds of things, mostly for hot flashes, night sweats, and the attendant insomnia that produces, along with a woman who is, has stress in her life and is suffering from liver qi to at least some extent, in addition to her gynecological or menopausal symptoms. Wonderful formula, extremely useful if, for example, you've tried our supplement yin formula and it didn't work, or it wasn't strong enough, or the person is not getting the result that you want from let's say Zhi by D11. This is a formula to take a look at. Cystiquel. This is a base of Xiao Chai Hu Tong again, but it's an interesting formula. It is for bladder symptomology for the most part. So there's a liver-spleen disharmony with dampness pouring down, affecting, and so both the heart and the bladder are affected. So it's almost like the idea of Dao Qi San in a way, except that it's not Dao Qi San. It's Xiao Chai Hu Tong with additions and subtractions. The spleen will have been affected, and therefore the heart spirit may not be constructed. This person may have some emotional symptomology. There may be insomnia that manifests. The person often has neurogenic bladder. They have some excessive need to urinate all the time. If the patterns are, if this is the pattern presentation and their Western diagnosis is interstitial cystitis, it may be useful for that as well. However, it should not be used when there is damp heat present. If you're pretty certain that this patient has damp heat, then this is not the right formula. But it can be a useful formula if you have people with this particular presentation. Okay, the last formula I'm going to present is Golden Qi, another formula for lungs. This is an asthma cough kind of formula with Xiao Chai Hu Tong and Zhi San, which means stop coughing powder. It clears heat and transforms phlegm. We know that, and it has to fortify the spleen, since we know that the spleen has to be involved if there is phlegm happening. What's the statement? The lungs are where phlegm is stored, but the spleen is the source of the phlegm. So it fortifies the spleen, rectifies the qi, and stops cough or wheezing or panting, as it is translated from the Chinese, which we would say wheezing or asthma. So it rectifies it deals with the liver-spleen disharmony piece, and that is exacerbating the lungs' inability to heal from why ever the person has a cough. So other formulas that I'm not going to cover today, but that have been modified by us to become harmonizing formulas, include Buzhong Yiqi Tong and Guizhi Tong, which show up in many Blue Poppy formulas. And I will be talking about some of this in a future webinar that I do, similar to this one, short and sweet, on gynecological formulas. In the coming, let's say, 2-3 months, I'm going to be doing one on using Blue Poppy liniments and how to differentiate them, which ones to use for what, Blue Poppy's originals gynecological formulas, and something about our pediatric formulas and the dosing of them and how to use them if you do practice with kids. So that's what's coming up. If there's other subjects you'd like me to do little, product use webinars on, please email me and let me know. I'm open to your ideas. I want to be able to help people use our formulas more effectively. So I hope that some of this has been helpful for you, do watch for an email that you will get from GoToWebinar tomorrow that will have my name on it. It offers you some kind of discount coupons on the formulas that we mentioned in this webinar. Also, if you want to know more about harmonizing formulas, I recommend Bob's course on the subject, which is, I believe, an hour long with lots and lots of written materials attached to it, and you get CEUs for it. And I think you also get a discount coupon for that in the email that you will get tomorrow. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found one little kernel of something about our formulas that helps you use them more effectively for your patients. And thank you very much for being here. Best wishes.